Iblis, the figure often known in the West as Satan, is one of the most enigmatic and significant characters in Islamic theology. His role in the Quran and other Islamic texts provides a complex narrative that differs in important ways from the depictions of Satan found in Christianity and Judaism. While in Christianity, Satan is often seen as a fallen angel waging war against God's creation. In Islam, Iblis is not an angel at all, but a jinn, a distinct supernatural being created from fire. The Islamic understanding of Iblis highlights themes of temptation, arrogance, and divine will, which together reveal deeper insights into the nature of evil, free will, and God's overarching purpose in creation. In Islamic tradition, Iblis is called a Shaitan, the devil, and Aladu, the adversary. These terms are not just titles, but reflect his role and essence within the cosmology of the faith. Unlike the Christian narrative where Satan is seen as an archangel who rebels against God, Iblis' origin story is grounded in the belief that he was a jinn, created from smokeless fire, unlike angels who are created from light and are considered beings without free will. As a jinn, Iblis was capable of making choices, and it was this ability to choose that led to his downfall. Iblis' role and characteristics. Iblis is often described as a lurking whisperer who works behind the scenes, tempting, deceiving, and leading humans astray. The Quran portrays him as an insidious figure who does not openly confront God or openly wage war against humanity, but instead quietly seeks to lead people into sin and corruption. He is not the embodiment of evil itself, but rather the instigator of vice, pride, envy, lust, greed, and hatred. His main method is to whisper to the hearts of humans, influencing their thoughts and emotions in subtle ways that encourage sinful behavior. One of Iblis' primary roles, as described in Islamic texts, is his capacity to distract believers during acts of worship, especially prayer. The Waswasa, the Arabic term for whispers, refers to the devil's ability to confuse people's thoughts and interrupt their connection to God. It is said that during prayer, Iblis may make someone forget whether they've already performed their prayers, jumbling their words, or even leading them to neglect their religious duties. In fact, the Quran and Hadiths contain vivid stories of Iblis' attempts to thwart acts of worship and lead the faithful into forgetfulness or misdirection. The Hadith of the Prophet Muhammad, which mentions a man who missed the morning prayer due to sleeping, further illuminates Iblis' role. The Prophet explained that Satan had urinated in the man's ears, metaphorically suggesting that missing prayer was not just a matter of poor sleep, but a result of Iblis' malevolent influence. Iblis' role extends beyond personal temptation. He is said to command lesser devils, the Shaitan, whose task is to seduce humans into sinful behavior. These devils, however, are not depicted in Islamic tradition as the red-skinned, horned caricatures commonly found in Western culture. Instead, the Shaitan can be either human or jinn, and it is their opposition to Islam, their rejection of divine guidance, that makes them devilish. This idea reflects a broader understanding within Islam. Evil is not a substance in itself, but a distortion of free will, the decision to choose the wrong path. The Quran mentions that those who are led astray by Iblis and his followers will find themselves in the torment of Gehenna, hell, but those who resist his influence are promised eternal reward in paradise. One of the most important ritual stones that demonstrate the Islamic rejection of Iblis, symbolizing their rejection of the devil of Iblis' Hajj pilgrimage. This act commemorates the story of the prophet Abraham, who, when asked by God to sacrifice his son Ishmael, was confronted by Iblis attempting to dissuade him. Abraham, however, resisted Iblis' temptations and threw stones at him, thus rejecting his influence. The fall of Iblis, the story of Iblis' fall from grace, is crucial in understanding his nature. According to the Quran, when God created Adam from clay and breathed life into him, he commanded the angels to bow down to Adam. Iblis, however, refused. His objection was not just one of simple disobedience, but rooted in his pride. He believed that since he was made from fire, a purer and more powerful element, and Adam was made from clay, he was inherently superior and therefore should not bow to him. This refusal to bow was a sign of Iblis' arrogance and his sense of self-importance, traits that would define his character and actions throughout the rest of his existence. In the Quranic narrative, God did not just punish Iblis immediately for his defiance. Instead, Iblis was granted respite until the day of judgment. He requested the time to mislead humanity, and God granted his wish, though with the warning that those who follow Iblis would suffer the consequences in the afterlife. It is from this story that the Islamic understanding of evil is framed. Iblis is allowed to exist and tempt humanity not because God is powerless to stop him, but because it is part of God's divine plan. Evil exists as a consequence of free will, and God allows it as a test for humanity. The fall of Iblis is not depicted in the Quran as a grand battle of wills or a rebellion against God, as in the Christian narrative of Lucifer's fall from grace. Instead, it is portrayed as a simple act of defiance born from pride. Iblis' refusal to bow down before Adam reflects his inability to accept God's will, and his punishment serves as a lesson in humility and the dangers of arrogance. Iblis and the concept of free will. The figure of Iblis also highlights the importance of free will in Islamic theology. Jinn, like humans, possess free will. They can choose to obey or disobey God. Iblis' downfall serves as a cautionary tale about the consequences of misusing this gift of free will. His choice to refuse to bow to Adam was not just an act of rebellion, but a choice to act out of arrogance and self-interest, which ultimately led to his fall from grace. This idea of free will is central to the Islamic understanding of moral responsibility. Unlike Christianity, which often frames the fall of Satan as part of a cosmic struggle for dominance between good and evil, Islam emphasizes that Iblis' role in leading humanity astray is not a contest of equals. Iblis may have power over human beings, but that power is limited, and it is only effective if Iblis in the broader Islamic narrative. Iblis, the ultimate responsibility for sin lies with those who choose to act against God's guidance. The Quran repeatedly emphasizes that evil and temptation are not intrinsic to God's creation, but are a part of the test that every human being faces. Just as Adam and Eve were tempted by Iblis in the garden, every person must struggle with the whispers of Iblis in their own lives. The temptation to deviate from the righteous path is a constant threat, but it is through resistance to this temptation that a believer proves their faith and commitment to God. The Quran's narrative of Iblis, therefore, is not just about the existence of evil, but about the challenges that come with free will and the human capacity for choice. Iblis is not seen as an independent force equal to God, but as a creature who has chosen to lead others astray. His influence is real, but it is limited by the choices of individuals. Those who resist Iblis' whisperings, who remain steadfast in their faith, are rewarded by God. Ultimately, Iblis represents the temptation to rebel against God's guidance and the moral struggle inherent in human life. Iblis and comparative religion. Interestingly, the figure of Iblis shares many similarities with Satan in both Jewish and Christian traditions. The refusal to bow to Adam, the pride, and the subsequent punishment are motifs that appear in several apocryphal Christian texts and also in Jewish folklore. However, there are also key differences in the way these stories are told. For instance, in Christianity, Satan's rebellion is often seen as part of a larger cosmic battle, while in Islam, Iblis' defiance is more personal and rooted in his arrogance. Additionally, the Quran emphasizes that Iblis is not a fallen angel, but one of the jinn, marking a significant theological distinction. The shared elements across these traditions suggest a common cultural and religious understanding of evil and temptation. The figure of Iblis, or Satan,